What's up, everybody? If you're new to the channel, this is a Robert's Thoughts episode where I just kind of sit in my comfy chair and I just kind of rant a little bit, or maybe just kind of discuss with you guys things going on in the movie world. And this is something that has been intriguing me for the past few months, and I wanted to make this a podcast episode, but I don't know if I'm particularly fluent in the ways of the podcast, so maybe I don't do that. And I decided I would just make a Robert's Thoughts episode on this. But the topic for the day is, can DC kind of outshine Marvel, right? Because for the past 20 years almost, Marvel has been almost exclusively, quote-unquote, better than DC. And I don't want to start like a fanfare war. That's not what I'm intending to do here. I'm going on this kind of semi-biased, we'll get into that later, but it's hard to describe, but it is technically, Marvel is technically better than DC. And the fact that it just makes more money, it attracts more people, and it's just considered better, right? But I think the tides could be turning here. And let me give you some brief data to describe some basic facts first before we go into kind of where it could go in the future. First, I think it's important we talk about money, right? Because that's what movies are. Movies are money makers. That's all people make movies for, is for money. So let's talk about DC first. I'm going to talk about the most recent 3 theatrical releases of both DC and Marvel. DC, we had The Suicide Squad, which was $165.3 million box office gross. We have Wonder Woman 84 with $159.5 million gross, and Birds of Prey with $201.9 million gross. Not bad. None of those made any money, but that's because it's during a pandemic, so it's understandable. And Marvel, we had No Way Home with $1.8 billion so far, Eternals with $398.4 million, and Shang-Chi with $417.9 million. Now, what I think is particularly important here is all 6 of these movies were released during a pandemic, right? Like, people don't like going to the theaters, they're scared. So the fact that they're making this much money is still impressive. And, thank you to everyone who put their work into all these movies for making it happen. I really appreciate all of that. It keeps me entertained, keeps thousands of others entertained. So, keep it up. Thank you for, pushing through hard times. But the fact of the matter is, Marvel is consistently making more money. In fact, almost no DC movies make it past the $1 billion mark, right? 4 in the past 20 years, 4 movies in DC history have made it past the $4 billion mark, or the $1 billion mark, sorry. And Marvel has had 10 over the past 20 years, hit over $1 billion over the gross for worldwide. However, I should mention that this data is a little out of touch with reality because it's a little not fair to DC. DC has released, maybe 16 movies total over the past 20 years. Marvel's had 40. So I do think that it is not fair to compare necessarily just the number of movies that have crossed the $1 billion mark, but still, it's a pretty significant difference. Again, the data's a little skewed there, but you get the point. And there's a couple other things like demographic issues, right? Where Marvel tends to make things that kids can watch. Most DC movies are rated PG-13 anyway, but still, people would feel better about taking their kids to see Spider-Man than, say, Batman. It's just a fact. I don't really know why that is. Well, I guess it's because they're known for being more grittier, but still, it's just it's a truth. It's a fact. And I, if you couldn't tell, am a huge Marvel fan, or at least I was since I was a kid. And maybe that's changed a little bit. It's hard to tell. But, what's important here is that I am noticing a shift towards liking a lot of DC projects. I will say I don't love all DC projects. In fact, most DC Extended Universe movies I don't like. My reviews are on the channel. You can check those out at your leisure if you want to. But Joker and the Batman, they're so good. I think they're better than anything Marvel's done in years. And I do think that Shazam was really, really great. The Suicide Squad was fantastic. And I do love the Snyder Cut, but that doesn't really exist anymore, but I do love it. Whereas Marvel, in terms of its most recent stuff, I don't really care for. I love Spider-Man, but that says I'm a huge Spider-Man fan. I know the movie's not particularly great, but it did give me a huge theater experience, which is something that DC has been struggling with. DC doesn't have the right balance of characters to make something like that. It's almost impossible for them. Whereas Marvel, they can just keep plugging and chugging superheroes at their will. They're like, oh, we need a Spider-Man movie to make money? I got you. And they can just keep doing that over and over and over and over and over again and still consistently make more money than DC. But the Batman and the Joker and a bunch of other movies that DC's put out recently have shown that they have a better technicality to them. I mean, they're just better films. They're not superhero movies. They're character studies, which is something that Marvel doesn't do particularly well. They're much better at, like, action-y and adventure-y, and that's fine. But it's not, like, I don't want to say film bro, because that's not the right word, but that's the right word. Like, they're more film bro-y, right? Like, no one is going to see Spider-Man expecting a cinematic masterpiece. But when I went to see the Batman, it's a cinematic masterpiece. And I do think that they're becoming more understanding of what they're trying to do, which is make a damn good movie. And it's working for them. And there's some things in the future I'm not looking forward to. I have it up on my computer here. Such as, and not necessarily limited to, I don't think The Flash is going to be particularly good. Aquaman 2, not great. Batgirl, maybe? Shazam 2, I'm excited for, but I don't think it's going to be that great. And it's just, all of these things combined, it's just, I'm not a huge fan of. Whereas Marvel is kind of the same boat. I'm excited for Doctor Strange. But beyond that, almost nothing. I don't really care about it. And so I'm curious to see where we go in the future, but honestly, at this point, if DC can keep plugging out movies that are as good as the Joker and as good as the Batman, it's possible that they could turn a lifelong Marvel fan into a DC fan. This remains to be seen simply due to the fact that, like, these aren't even part of the DCEU. Not even close. Like, these are very standalone films. And there's almost nothing in the DCEU canon that I love. Like, I love Shazam, but beyond that, nothing is solidified itself enough in my repertoire of favorite films to make it there. But, like, you know, we have Infinity War and Spider-Man No Way Home and Marvel and so many others that can compare to each other that feel like a really good, fun movie, and I like to rewatch them. Whereas DCEU movies, I feel like I don't want to, because tomorrow they could be not canon anymore. It's just how DC works, and I'm curious how the executive meetings go, because I'm sure they're crazy. But the point is I think that if they keep pushing out movies that are as good as the Batman and Joker, you know, once every couple of years we have a really good film. If they keep doing that, they could bring more fans in that aren't looking for superhero movies, you know? I think that it's possible they could push into more movies making a ton of money. So I'm really curious to see how that goes. I'm excited to see the box office gross for the Batman. That should be out on Monday. I think this video comes out on Tuesday, so that'll come out by now. But at the time of filming this, it has not. And I think it's going to be pretty big. I do. I don't think it's going to cross... actually, I do think it's going to cross the $1 billion mark. I do think that. It'll take some time, but I think it will. So I'm excited to see where that goes. And what do you guys think? I want this to be like a conversation. Do you guys like DC or Marvel better? Which one do you expect to like better in the future, and why? All these things I love to know, so comment that stuff in the comments below. I'm really curious what you guys think, because I don't want this to be like just a me thought, but like, has anyone else noticed? Like, I don't know. But anyway, thank you guys so much for watching this video. I really appreciate it. If you like what you saw, please consider hitting that subscribe button and the like button. Helps me out a whole lot, so please consider doing so. And as always, keep watching movies and television, stay educated, and I'll see you guys in the next video.